All right, there we go. All right, there we have some people coming in. All right, hey everyone. We are going to get started in just a minute. We'll give it a little bit of time to let folks join. But thank you so much for joining us. We have a great group here today to talk about how we teach, how we learn, the skills we need, the skills that are important for anyone with a growing or an interest in tech. All right. All right. So as people continue to trickle in, I'm just going to kick things off with some housekeeping items. So today we're going to be talking about mastering technical skills, the tools, tips, and tricks for efficient technical learning. And we'll also talk about technical teaching as well. So how not only we learn these skills, but we help others learn them as well. And this is in collaboration with our wonderful partners at CourseStack, who we are so excited to be partnering with for this and for some other items as well. So today like I said, we're just going to go through some quick housekeeping items, and then we have a great panel for you, and we'll finish out with some closing remarks and see if we have any questions that anyone would like to hear more of from our panelists. So today we're going to talk about what skills are necessary in the current landscape. We have some industry experts here, both who have been in education, who are currently educating, who have taught themselves, who have taught others. And so they're going to share some of their insights with us, their top resources, their tools, their strategies for both learning and teaching. And so whether you are an expert in this space, whether you're just getting started, or whether you're looking to help others upskill themselves, this will provide some actionable advice, resources, and just general tips and tricks to help you accelerate your own journey. So a little bit about women in analytics. If you are new to this space, our mission is to increase the visibility to women, to non-binary, to gender fluid individuals who are making an impact in the analytics space. And we're also providing a platform within that space for those individuals to be the ones leading the conversation around the advancements of analytical research, development, application. And so for any of those folks in analytics to data science to ML, AI, anyone working with, working adjacent to, or interested in data and analytics, this is the place for you, especially if you're looking to connect with others who are just as excited about it as you are. You can stay involved with regular events just like this. You can join our community platform, which is free to join. We have a mentorship program and some other really fun tutorials and courses coming to you very soon. So if you're interested, you can scan this QR code, or you can just join us at womenanalytics.com. There's a lot to explore there, and we have some pretty exciting stuff coming up. All right, so if you have any questions throughout this webinar today, there is a handy little Q&A section down there where you can ask, and we will either get to those at the end, or if you have any questions about CourseStack specifically, we have Chris here, and he would be more than happy to answer those. If you're having any issues with your audio, please shoot us an email, and we will help get that figured out. And if you love this or you're an ongoing member, you can stay in touch, stay up to date with either our newsletter, on socials, or on that community platform, which is such a wonderful resource. I also want to say thank you again to our sponsor, CourseStack. CourseStack helps data professionals create and deliver amazing technical learning experiences for other aspiring data professionals. Their LMS is purpose-built to help you succeed in monetizing your expertise with courses that are focused on hands-on learning, real tools and data, and beautifully simple technical content delivery. So if you're interested in CourseStack, we have a link you can follow right there, coursestack.com/WIA, where you can learn more about how you can help other data analysts, other practitioners either get into the field, improve their skills, and you can do that all while building a successful course and learning platform and business of your own. All right. So with that, I would love to kick things off with our panel. First off, by introducing our panelists today. So Jenna and Jelly, do you prefer Jelly or Angelica?
Jelly, it has a nice ring to it, Lauren.
All right. Yeah, we've got Jenna and Jelly. So Could each of you just give us a quick intro to yourselves and your background? And Jenna, we can start with you.
Hi everyone. I'm Jenna Fry. I have been working in the education industry for well over 15 years now. I first started out at Ohio State working in a lot of different areas, including executive communications, and eventually launched the Data Analytics Institute that's still there. I transitioned about 4 years ago into K-12, first at a private charter school, and then now at Columbus City Schools, where I manage my official title is Manager of HR Data and Systems. Ultimately, since I work for the Chief of HR, that really means I do whatever she tells me to, which can mean a lot of different things. So,
All right. Hello,
Awesome. Yeah.
everyone. Oh, sorry, Lauren.
No, go ahead, Jelly.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Angelica Jelly Spratley. I started off my education journey actually in K through 12 as a teacher, teaching high schoolers computer science as well as electrical engineering. Upon those 3 years, I obtained my master's in analytics. And so I was able to go into the industry for several years, working in managerial positions as well as an individual contributor. I made my way back to the ed tech space where now I teach senior data science for an ed tech boot camp, as well as a curriculum designer for a nonprofit organization called Marcy Lab School out of Brooklyn, New York, that provides data and software engineering pathways for underrepresented minorities and young adults. I also teach post-secondary adult learners for a local community college. So all things education and tech here.
Amazing. And so with the two of you, we really have a representation from learning at any level of your career, of your education, which is, I think is really awesome because we're going to get such a broad range of perspectives. And so my first question with this, with the experience you have with the general state of the tech landscape, how do you stay up to date with that rapidly evolving landscape to keep your skills relevant?
Yeah, I'll go
Jelly, you want
ahead
to
and
go first?
yeah, since I'm very passionate about this. So I attend a lot of in-person and virtual conferences. I must say, conferences are free. There are tons of free conferences out here. There's also some nice paid options. I even met you, Lauren, at the Data Connect conference this past year, which gave us some great insights about the state of the industry, especially now with AI. I would say my highlight conference this past year has been Disney Data and Analytics. So it has been my first Disney and Data Analytics conference with some people from academia, as well as some top hitters such as NVIDIA, to kind of get us aware of what the current state is of data and what type of analytics are coming to head, as well as great blogs and publications. I have a great LinkedIn network. So I would say network. So Daily Dose of Data Science by Avi is one of my favorite blogs and publications as well. So definitely keeping up with those conferences. I have to shout out Data Camp's virtual conference as well. It's free to attend, and that always happens twice a year and keeps me up to date of the industry.
and
Awesome.
I think Jelly would probably agree with me that the education industry in general, especially K-12, can be much slower to adapt new technologies and adapt to them. So in general, I would say that, for my job specifically, I don't have to worry too much about changing technology since we are so much slower and we're on the end of that curve. But what I do is I personally rely on my professional network to stay up to date on the latest technologies and the news. So I've been a member of WIA for, probably going on 8 or 9 years now, been highly involved in that. There's also Tech Life Columbus, which I love to go to. And just by interacting with a lot of people and touching base and having frequent, coffees or lunches, that's especially how I like to stay up to date.
Awesome. And so I love that with this, you've kind of represented the broadness and the like localness, the localization of that. So you're saying like right in your own community, but then Jelly, you're on the other hand saying conferences that you're traveling to, or even virtual networks like LinkedIn. So no matter where you are, you can find these resources. And so on the line of that, are there any online platforms, online communities that you find yourself in addition to the ones you've mentioned, going back to when you want to research a specific topic or learn something specific? Jenna, any thoughts?
Yeah, so online, I'm not as much as an online person, and that may be a generational thing. So I prefer to do a lot of things in person. So I went back and got my MBA when I was at Ohio State. And because of that, I've developed a really strong network both there and with WIA. And again, so what I'll do is again touch base with people and just have an informational coffee, talk about their career, and then inadvertently every single time we end up talking about, oh, I learned this new software, oh, I learned how to do this new skill, or oh, you should really think about, to Jelly's point, going to this conference or trying this course or this certification. So I'm more of an in-person versus online, but I've found that network to be especially helpful.
Yeah, I would have to piggyback on that, saying whether it's in person or online, it's valuable. I would have to say I am an online person. I think when I first started my master's in analytics, we had a great partnership with Data Camp, and I can't speak highly of them enough, not because they got me through my master's, but I swear to you not, Lauren, it feels like every month they're posting a new course. And to me, you have to stay current. And so if you really want a current up-to-date resource, I will say check out some of these low cost e-learning platforms. Definitely Deep Learning AI. It's a nice free platform. So anytime there's a new AI or large language model that's coming out, you can almost guarantee Dr. Ing has it on his site for free, as well as Discord. So I was not a Discord person. My professional life was Slack and Teams, but there are some really great Discords out here, from Analyst Builder, where you can just share free resources and find people to work on projects, for break into data, from Chris Frenchie's Discord. There's so many online resources, as well as books and publications. I would say Low Code AI from O'Reilly has been one that I'm currently reading, and then an algorithmic justice book. So unmasking bias in AI for Dr. Joy for the Algorithmic Justice League, because I also want to stay current on ethical and responsible uses of tools and technology.
That's awesome. And something I want to kind of elaborate on is something you touched on, that there's courses coming out every single day. There's so much content. If there's something you want to learn, it's there, but you also have so many options. So when you have that many options, when there's so many ways you could learn this, there's so many platforms, how do you evaluate and choose which ones you go with to maximize the time you spend learning for value?
Yeah, I can take this one. So, since I am very present online, I mean, reviews go far. So there are a few people in my network that I trust, that they're not just doing a brand offer just to do it. They have actually tried it out. And so if they tell me, Jelly, this is a great course, I'm actually going to take their recommendation if I find them as a credible professional. And there's quite a few people in my network. If it's been around a long time, but I would say even some of these fresh platforms, if it's innovative and it has like a new idea and it appears to a certain audience or demographic, I'm going to try it out. I may take too many bites out of 20 apples, so I'm not gonna lie. There may be like 20 unfinished courses, and I never digest a full apple. However, the little bits and pieces that I do pull from courses have been enjoyable. And so if the speaker is engaging, if I feel like it's hands-on or gonna give me some type of application to my everyday life, not just reading slides from me, I'm really going to evaluate that. And I would say start free. Okay, there's so many free. Do not go out here and hoard a whole bunch of paid courses. Start free, see what it is. If they have like a test or beta, try it out and then go from there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The first thing I do is I reach out to my network and I ask, has anyone taken this course? Has anyone had an interesting certification or an experience or even books? That's the other thing that we often, I mean, think in the online presence, we forget about books, but like Dr. Joy's book, I have not been able to put it down since I started it. It's one of those, I try to read before I go to bed and to bring my mind down, but it actually hypes me up. So it's doing the opposite of what I wanted. So I've learned that little tidbit about myself. But yeah, that's the thing. For everyone here, taking this webinar, don't be afraid to ask people, what courses or, any type of learning have you found especially helpful, even books. At the Data Connect conference, for instance, just this summer, I was talking with someone who I've met many times before, and we were talking about, oh, what have you, learned recently? And they had recommended an online course for using R if you're used to SQL. And I haven't used a lot of R. Well, turns out it's actually not that different. I took that free course, again, to Jelly's point, free, and I learned, okay, I can actually transfer this much easier than I thought, to the point where I'm probably going to end up doing I'm trying to see if we can get R within CCS to see if I can start doing that as well.
That's awesome. So I think a big message with this is using the platform you have and figuring out just what's out there, running it, doing the gut check, right? And I know, Jelly, you often share courses that you've taken and you've liked, which is great too. So be the recommender of courses, I think, is a great add-on to that, no matter the size of your network. Like, you're someone trusted by someone else out there and you could help them. All right. So thinking about how you approach teaching, learning, what are some of the obstacles you see people encountering when they're trying to learn new technical skills? Jenna, go ahead.
Yeah. So the biggest one that I've seen over my career is fear. And that's really simplistic to say, but like it's a very common percentage, very common among a fair percentage of people, that they're just afraid. They're afraid that they're going to make a mistake. They're afraid of trying something new. And the reason this comes up in my mind is when I was at Ohio State, we created and ran a data literacy series. And the whole goal of the series was not necessarily to target people who were experts in data and data analytics, but rather the gamut of people, whether they're dabbling in it or really just want to try it, or maybe they're at the medium level. And the thing that I kept hearing over and over is people were very hesitant to sign up because they're like, well, I don't know what the skill level is of anybody else. And so we would tell them this is for everybody. And even if your skill level is different, that's okay, because you can end up learning something from someone else. Or if you're slightly higher level, you can end up teaching them as well. And even if software skills were not the same, you may have a different perspective on a problem that they wouldn't because of your background, because of where you've worked. And so the biggest message that I have for everyone here is just take the chance. Don't let fear overrun you to the point where you don't take that chance.
Yeah. So Jenna, you're talking a lot about that good old imposter syndrome. So I would have to agree because you said it so well. And I will also say it's information overload. Like I think even in my answer, I gave you 10,000 resources. I love Data Camp. I love Deep Learning AI. I love Unmasking AI for Dr. Joy. I love this blog and that blog. And a lot of people don't know where to start, and they feel that they have to learn everything in a short amount of time. And it's that information overload and that difficulty to focus on one skill and trying to hone on that. So my thing is, if you want to get started with Excel, focus on one Excel course, learn, apply, learn, apply, learn, apply. Make 2 or 3 projects just from Excel. And then if your next step is SQL, then go to SQL, learn, apply, learn, apply. And that's kind of what I did on my YouTube for a 30-day SQL challenge. It's like, focus on SQL for these 30 days. Let's make some projects of SQL so that you're not having information from here, there, and everywhere. So information overload can be very daunting when you're starting out in this field. So pick 1 or 2 technical and or professional skills and focus on that, as well as accessibility. So women in analytics is national and international. Not a lot of people have access to resources, right? That is still an issue. So we don't want to overlook that. I know for me, I'm always trying to think of ways of how can I help even overseas, even if it is those books. This is why books is so important, because it's easier to send a book than it is a laptop, right? So having limited access to resources or even mentorship support, or not having someone in your corner, which I know that you'll talk about later, Lauren.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And just thinking about the different learning and delivery styles, not just based on the preferences, but based on the access and the limitations that you might encounter too. And I would love to kind of ask a little bit further on that. Outside of recommending books in addition to online coursework, what else can you do, Jelly, to make education a little bit more accessible to folks?
That is always a tough one, right? Because it feels like unless you're on the ground and located with them and you're starting up on the ground, spin up education facilities or on the ground 5 or 6 weeks, delivering this information and making evangelists and stewards of data and analytics. It seems like working across waters is very, very difficult. But I would say, even for some of us who are more sophisticated in our career, where we're writing books, we're building courses, think about using screen readers. Think about, can that book be published in Braille or in another language? Think about the literacy level of things. Should it be a ninth grade literacy level or a third grade literacy level? So think about all of these barriers that someone may have to access some of our resources, and think about how you can flip it in a different way.
Yeah, those are really incredible that tips and tricks, I think, because so much of that is available by the technology we have now. It's so much easier to make things more accessible than ever. So Jenna, on the more in-person type of education setting, what have you seen along those lines, especially for making things hands-on in conjunction with more accessible?
Yeah, actually, so when I was at Ohio State, like I said, we had started a literacy series. The other thing that we started, and it still exists, although in a slightly different form, is we started a data camp specifically for young women, targeting rising 8th to 10th graders. And one of the things that we did was we thought very strategically about the fact that these were kids who likely did not have access to computers. They didn't have access to even get to the camp. So we arranged for transportation to and from their home schools within Columbus to get them there. In terms of learning, we had to think differently of, okay, we just don't want them to sit here and listen to someone talk, right? We want them to actually code along with us. We want them to go through projects together. And that's what we did. So instead of just having someone get up and talk about what code is, we had them sit in groups with undergraduate student mentors who sat there and helped them write a code for the first time in their life. We actually, did by the end of the 5th day, they took an entire data set that people use in college. They coded it, they analyzed it, and they were able to present to the entire camp on it. And it was a truly invigorating experience seeing these kids who had not had a single data analytics experience coming in. And by the end of the 5th day, we're telling them, you just did something college students did. And it was all about engaging them. It's not sitting down, it's actually getting them involved and getting their hands truly dirty. And you could see things start to connect with them. So yeah, the hands-on is especially important.
Absolutely. And so Jelly, on the more online virtual side of things, what is the role and what's the balance, maybe more importantly, of that hands-on experience with and in conjunction with the teaching, the learning, the kind of learn then test that you were talking about?
Yeah, at least in tech, the hands-on is pretty easy as long as you have a computer. So that's great. But like you're speaking to the I do and we do, then you do type of methodology where, as Jenna is saying, you can watch me code, but we need to code together. So can we take this data set and build this Tableau dashboard? Are you able to work in small teams and take a brand new data set and then get me a brand new dashboard, right? And that is really easy to do in asynchronous classrooms now, especially since you have breakout rooms, you have teams, you have all of these different features in these free screen recording software that allow students to work individually, work alongside you, as well as work in teams. Um, I would say having the differentiated pathways, so having people choose their own path to success. So when I'm building out some type of projects, I may have a data set that's healthcare, I may have one that's sports, I may have one that's social media engagement. And it all has a similar level of difficulty, or it may not, but it's like choose your own path. What do you want to brand yourself as? Do you want to be someone who is more of the dashboarding person? Do you want to be someone that's more of the predictive modeling person? And is there an industry of interest to you? So having these differentiated paths when you can let students be in charge of their own learning journey is very, very beneficial. And I see that both in asynchronous and synchronous classes.
That's so interesting. I love that idea of the kind of choose your own adventure. I know, and this is like a broad but also relevant comparison because it's becoming more of a tech space. Like in video games, that's what makes something more engaging is what's your interest, what are your skills, where do you want to go, and that's how you build and that's how you approach something. Um, that's super interesting. So in terms of the, and this is more on the teaching side, which I know is a role both of you have held, how have you seen, what have you learned that has helped and that you would recommend for teachers, for educators to make these type of courses, this skill development more engaging, more interesting, and something that students of any age want to stick through the end with? Jenna, what have you seen more in the in-person type of education side of things?
On in-person, we're big on it's kind of choose your own path, right? You choose something, but like say you're learning Lean Six Sigma. So for instance, this one was more adult learners. My mentor actually at Columbus City Schools said, we're going to be doing a Lean Six Sigma certification. And they said, do you want to be a part of it? And as part of that Lean Six Sigma, what I really enjoyed about it personally as a learner, but then I can also take back when I teach, is by the end of six, not even by the end, by the first time you're starting with Lean Six Sigma and you're learning it in sections, they say you're going to get together in a group and you're going to actually pick a problem to solve within your organization. And along the way, you're learning the concepts and you're learning what to do. And then by the end, you get your certification. It's because you've actually done a hands-on project applying what you have learned. And some of them, it works really well. And you end up doing exactly what you hoped or better. That was the case with my group. We were able to do something that, had never been done within the district before. We took something that was very manual. We were able to automate it and use some code to actually go into a software system and automate it, which was fantastic. I think we reduced our time for the project down from used to be 5 days for a single person, and we took it down to 2, which was fantastic. But along the way, there were other projects that I know people tried and they failed. But ultimately, in that failure, they were able to learn, okay, I was thinking too big or thinking too broadly, and I needed to narrow my scope. So I would say that getting in and actually playing, whether it be a new software, whether it be a specific project, is especially helpful for learning, no matter the age group.
Yeah, I would have to piggyback off of that because that's some great information there. I would say always start with why are they taking this course? It's different things. So me, I work in a ed tech boot camp. So the goal is to land a job, right? And if you tie back the projects and curriculums towards you will get a job, it will motivate certain adult learners because this is why you came. For K through 12, that might not be the same thing, right? They're not there getting right out of high school, getting a job. Some of them want to go to college. Some of them want to play sports, whatever it may be. And you have to tie it back to what motivates them at the core. So when it comes to career skills ready boot camps, just as you've already mentioned, Lauren, I don't care the age range, gamification helps. So if you can make a leaderboard, if you can make a competition, if you can gamify something, people will listen because we're all gamers at heart, whether it's board games, whether it's video games. So as you mentioned, conferences that have earned this points, and then you'll enter a raffle. Jelly is going to finish her profile. She's going to attach her LinkedIn. She's going to go to a breakout session. She's going to connect with 3 people just so I can enter that raffle, right? So think of ways that you can gamify things, as well as ways to help people celebrate their stepping stones and their success. So I know in learning management systems, you can put progress bars. If I say that this module is going to take 45 minutes, each reading is going to be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and it's going to show a little green yay at the end, right? Having people to give their feedback to make them feel like they're involved in the learning process. So whether it's a thumbs up, thumbs down, or emoji interface, it really does help in asynchronous classes as much, believe it or not, it's like a big help. So figure out what they're motivated about, try to gamify things, try to make them involved in that continuous feedback loop to make them feel like you really value their education. You're motivated to help them achieve their goals just as much as they would like to achieve their goals.
That is such an interesting point. And I know online, that's something you have to build in. When you're in person, like Jenna, where you're teaching students on the day-to-day, they're in a classroom, they're getting feedback in person, they're getting that positive or negative reinforcement, that engagement. But yeah, on these online courses, that's such a good point, that if you can build that in, you are what's encouraging progress. Because sometimes I know with courses like that, it's extra time you're putting in, and then there's that constant balance of what's the end goal, what is this, what's the worth of this. And I think sometimes you do need that just little boost to encourage you to keep going. And I think that's so important, especially as we're figuring out and when we're talking about how you evolve your own strategies for teaching and learning. And on kind of the side of that, so as you've both, I mean, obviously you've been learners, you've been in master's programs, you've gone through traditional education as well as boot camps. How have your strategies to how you approach learning new skills evolved as you've been in this teaching role as well? Jenna, what have you seen, and how have you grown and evolved those skills?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is, especially as I've gotten a little bit older and a little bit more advanced in my career, the big shift for me was when people started coming to me for expertise and advice, which was really unexpected the first time it happened. And then you kind of have to pivot. You're like, no, I'm supposed to learn from you. And so it really shifted how I happen to see learning in general. And it's, especially being a member of WIA, the first thing I started thinking about was, am I lifting others' hopes? Because especially being in a data field, there's so few of us. And being able to lift each other up is especially important. And so in terms of learning styles, what I advocate very strongly for is when you're looking at not only teaching, but looking at yourself in general, you need to advocate for the people around you, and you need to support organizations that support your own values. So when I am looking at whether it's a career step or I'm looking at courses, to Jelly's point, all these amazing courses or options or books that we have, I do a little research about who's involved. Are they people who look like me? Are they people with diverse backgrounds? Or are they really homogenous type of group? Because if that's what I value, and I do personally, I want to support other organizations that are like that. And so that's, for me personally, it's shifted the way I look at things and the way I approach learning myself.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, I was the only African American female in my master's program out of 120 of us, right? With an 8% acceptance rate. So it wasn't too many people that I could lean on. And that was kind of a shocker coming from a HBCU, which is a historically Black college and university, right? So I've seen both coins of a PWI as well as a HBCU and the pros and cons. But to answer the question more directly, I think throughout my educational journey, I see a lot of teacher directed teaching versus student directed teaching and learning. And I would say, normally there's a teacher that stands in the front of the classroom. They go through some slides. They tell you what you're going to learn today. They may have, some time for questions, may not. And then you study real hard for an exam. The exam is probably 90% theory, depends on what class that you take. And your lab portion is probably worth 1 credit, but the actual class itself is worth 3. That's just normally, traditionally, how we have things set up. Versus in my course creation process, as well as an instructor, I have time to have student directed learning and teaching. So if we call it Feelings Friday, it's like, this is our daily stand up. How did you feel about the material? Is somebody else in your same boat? What would you like us to review again? What are you doing this weekend? And making them feel like, okay, this is kind of directed. I can request that Jelly re-goes over this, or you're getting close to the career search. Would you like to see more mock interviews? What type of mock interviews would you like? Would you like product interviews or case studies or technical interviews? I have these 4 projects. Send me your top 1 and top 2 of ones that you want to do before I assign you in teams. And you have to give these options of student directed learning as well. And feedback, which normally in traditional classrooms you don't. And in a model where the application weighs more than the theory. So there is not a check for understanding that you can throw in Chat GPT that is going to be worth more in that course than you doing a start to finish project, right? And making sure that that application weighs more, because not just with the project, I can see professional skills. I can see data storytelling. I can see technical writing skills. I can get your team to evaluate you, as well as you do your own self-assessment. And so having this professional technical application component be worth a lot more in a course can really set them up, in this case, for a career, because that is the end goal that we want. So yeah, I would say that has been a change. And then of course the change is AI, right? I've heard somebody ask me the other day, how do you make it AI proof? How do you make your courses and curriculum AI proof, Jelly? And I said, well, what is your definition of AI proof? And we all have different definitions, right? But their definition is so that they can't just easily throw something in an AI tool and give me an answer. So what's easily? So if it's in a data set, is it an extra step for them to upload the data set to AI and it's no longer easy? Or how do you define easy? And I would say, don't focus on AI proof as much as AI embracement, and think about creative ways that you can modify that curriculum to still help the students learn, but still use it as a tool alongside it, because it's here now. So we have to learn how to work with it and not against it. So I just wanted to say that that, of course, has been a change.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because that's something I think every time, being someone in AI, every time I speak with someone in education, that's always a question. And I love that you say work with it, because students now, they're going into industries, they're going into careers where they're going to be expected to work with AI and to learn it and to use it to maximize productivity. And so to educate them properly, you really have to include that in the curriculum. So I think that's such an important call out as well. One of the things, Jenna, that you mentioned earlier, you touched on, was people were coming to you to support their own education. And something I know we want to touch on is the role of mentorship, is the role of others, maybe not even others that are so far ahead of you, even someone one step ahead of you. So what is the role you've seen mentorship play in technical skill development for you, Jenna?
So for me, I've been very thankful to have both technical and non-technical mentors, which has been especially helpful. And every single one of those individuals was crucial to not only my career progression, but the skills that I developed along the way. So for instance, I had one where we were working on how you communicate data in an effective way. And during that, they said, you should maybe take some public speaking skills. And of course, that's a topic everyone hates. Don't do public speaking. It's so scary. But I will say, I ended up taking a course in my MBA specifically off their recommendation. And it was one of my favorite courses that I have ever taken to date, because it got me outside my comfort zone. And it really changed the way I was seeing mentorship. And along the way, with other mentors, I've asked, okay, what am I not asking you that you want to tell me that I need to do better? And not in a negative way, but it's okay, we're talking about X, right? but sorry, not the platform. We're talking about X and then Y. Just clarify. And then it would be, okay, what have we not talked about yet? Right? And then what are some areas that I should be focusing on? And then ultimately, towards the end of the mentorship, I also asked, is there somebody else that I should be talking to who you think would be a great mentor? And it's funny how many of those end up transitioning to another mentor. And along the way, those connections, you end up having somebody else ask you to be their mentor, which is especially frightening. But once you get through it the first time, you're much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I think, Lauren, it's interesting how you said, even if somebody is just one single step ahead of you. I would say a lot of my mentors, so to speak, have actually been one step behind me, if not more. I think being an educator, your students are mentoring you. I think my relationship building techniques, especially me being in the classroom, is because of my students, right? Where they might not have been a teacher or on a different professional level, but they have taught me things like empathy and being able to build relationships and how to motivate the unmotivated, right? They have been my creme de la creme into mentoring me of tons of my professional skills. Like when I'm thinking about making curriculums now, I'm always thinking about the end user and the previous feedback that the end user gave me. So I would say mentors are around every corner. Now, of course, I have people that are my colleagues and above me that provide guidance, whether formally or informally. So if I'm scrolling through LinkedIn, I'm like, hey, that's a good point from, a senior data scientist at NVIDIA. That's great. And then one of my friends and peers that's on this call right now, Dr. Yuona, and we're always picking each other's mind about how to approach a problem or a new project that we can come up with. But mentorship is very important. I would say think about the value that you get from your mentees just as much as the value the mentee gets from the mentor. I know a lot of people always ask me to mentor. I wish I could mentor a whole state, but that is not the case, right? So I try to use my platforms like LinkedIn and YouTube channels to do some type of informal mentoring on a larger scale because I just can't answer 5,000 DMs. I just can't, right? But I would say my mentors have always been the end users that I have worked with.
I love that. That's great because and hopefully in that way you're broadening the definition of mentorship in the way that more people become mentors. And then you don't have to search out mentors from those people that like yourself who are so busy. And you can not only grow your network but grow the perspectives you're able to help others with, and others are able to help others in or outside of that network. All right. And so, Jenna, one of the things you touched on was the specific skills you were developing. You called out public speaking, which is a non-technical skill, but a skill that is very important, communication. So for those who are starting out in tech, what are some of the skills, foundational skills, whether they are tech specific programming, whether they are the softer skills, and we'll start with you, Jelly, that you recommend for anyone just starting out?
Yeah, I always start with the professional, right? Because I've always said in my however many years I've been here on earth, I can teach you how to code. AI can eventually teach you how to code too. But is your emotional intelligence where it needs to be? Are you somebody that I want to work with in a team dynamic? Are you someone that has strong integrity that if I say you created a new file, that is actually a new file that you created and you didn't copy and paste it? Are you someone who has good product and business sense? Because that same old saying, your IQ will get you higher, but your EQ may get you fired because people just cannot work with you. So definitely having strong emotional intelligence is going to bring you far, and being nosy, right? Being in analytics, you have to be curious. You always have to be nosy. You have to ask the why. You have to be that person peeping around the office corner to figure out the why. Because as long as you stay curious and you challenge the data, you challenge these responsible AI practices, you ask if things are ethically being done, you know the regulations, and you're curious about that, you're going to go far. So a sense of curiosity and emotional intelligence are going to be the top for me over any technical skill. The technical skill will vary. I think in analytics, we focus a lot on the analytics and not the deployment of the analytics, hence the new job, analytics engineer, that's coming out. So definitely, if you can do a project and also deploy it, whether it's in a dashboard, whether it's on a free cloud instance, whatever it may be, I would highly recommend that you start moving in that direction.
Nice. Yeah, so I would say that I use slightly different words. I love the being curious or nosy, because one of the two that I had on there, I had communications, and then the other one was the ability to learn. So, you know, to Jelly's point, when I'm hiring someone on my team, I'm not necessarily looking for the person with the most sharp analytic skills. I'm looking for someone who has the ability to learn new software, because we might have an antiquated software from the 1980s and we might have a completely new one. It just depends on who you work with in the district. So the ability to learn that is far more important than any other technical skill, and at least and when it comes to my team. Now, I do have some data people, right? Actual data people. And the thing that I have learned, especially with people, because I come from a communications background, right? So my actual undergraduate degree is public affairs journalism, because I was going to be a writer. And then my career just kind of went all over the place, and I am where I am now. And the one thing that I have seen, especially with folks who have a more technical background, is the lack of ability to communicate their value. And when I say that, one of the biggest pieces of advice I ever got, again, from one of my mentors, was when we were practicing elevator pitches. She said, "You're telling me, you're not showing me." And so what that means is, for instance, when I'm completing a project, I don't just share the actual data. What I do is I create a summary slide. If I can't meet with the person, it's a summary slide or a graphic that illustrates what we found and its impact, right? So what does this data tell you? So don't just give them the raw data, but also within your careers that show me, don't tell me. A perfect way to illustrate that is, I don't tell people I'm a data manager, because that just says, okay, you're a data manager. There's no value there. What I say is I work alongside legal, IT, HR, and people across the district to make sure that our data is reliable and safe. And then I find patterns in that data to advise district leaders on making better informed decisions for our students, families, and community. And so that little difference of just saying your title versus showing the impact, right? It's the show, don't tell. And so anytime you can do that with any project, especially critical, and you'll start to see people come to you more and more for help.
I'm just going to have to praise Jenna on that, because that was good. How she sold herself, because I always tell my students, bottom line up front, the bluff. In the first 60 seconds of that presentation, tell me what the bottom line is, because you don't know if I'm a CEO and got another meeting that I happen to just schedule during your meeting and I need to get out the room. You want to keep me in that seat. So you have to say that value, bottom line up front. What is that bluff? How do you sell yourself? What is the so what? So Jenna, you sold yourself to me. Not that you had to, but you did a good job.
Good to know.
I love that. I love saying impact over methodology, which I think is just such skill. You can be doing the coolest data science analytics, like your technique could be amazing, but if you don't have a number up there that shows why it helped or how it made more money, how it saved time, you're not talking about that technique isn't really going to get you anywhere. And so I love that, the show don't tell. It's such an important skill to learn. And I think really going back to Jelly, what you were talking about, that application in conjunction with the theory is so important, because that's what teaches you how to actually go through that show don't tell process. And so if you have any questions, as we're getting to our last prepared question, please drop them in the Q&A, and so we can get them to our panelists. But the last thing I want to talk about is not just in terms of the skills, but what are some of the trends or technologies that you're seeing pop up, maybe more in the courses you're seeing, in the questions you're getting from mentors? What do you see as being really essential to staying ahead that people can start learning now? Jenna, what have you seen?
So again, I think since I work specifically in K-12, I will say that, we're slow to adopt and change. But one of the things that's been very big lately and why I really appreciated last year's Data Connect conference was AI. That has become so prevalent, and educators across K-12 are wondering, okay, well, not only how do I, to Jelly's point earlier, how do I make sure there's integrity in what my students are producing? But more so, how do I adopt it in my classroom, right? How do I embrace it, as Jelly was saying earlier? That is the biggest thing in K-12 right now is AI. And rather than combat it, right, start to actually bring it in and try to figure out how do we actually make it more informed? Is there a way to be engaged with AI to make the learning stronger, better, more impactful? That one right now is absolutely huge in what I am seeing.
Yeah, I mean, we would not be doing this panel a service if we didn't talk about it, right? Because AI is there, it is prevalent, right? And I would say exactly what Jenna said from the education standpoint, as far as in the classroom, figure out ways where students can create things. If I'm teaching data science, I want you to create that GitHub repo. I want you to show me a merge conflict and fix it, right? So the more you can get them to give you created deliverables that show some type of action underneath their username and accounts, you can see them actually produce projects and actually do the learning. If you ask them, tell me your story. AI is not going to give you a bio of Jelly. Now, I am in some news articles, so it may say Jelly was teacher of the year and Jelly, but no, tell me your story, right? And think of ways where you can personalize assignments to them that's just not a regurgitation of AI, but also use AI as a lesson. Purposely play around with AI yourself. I know it was the whole strawberry phenomena, right? And tell them how many R's is in strawberry, and let them go to AI and see it. It's corrected now, but you get what I'm saying. They can say 3, 4, 5, or 6, right? And show them how AI is like Wikipedia for us back in the day, or Ask Jeeves. It's all like, you can, maybe nobody knows what Ask Jeeves is. Anyway, Wikipedia is your first start when you're doing a research paper, but you need to back up Wikipedia with other sources. So tell them how AI is now like a Wikipedia, right? With that. So figure out ways to create. And I would say, just in a company standpoint, because I do work for a profit and for a nonprofit, right? Think of ways that AI can differentiate your business. Everybody is using AI for meeting notes. They're using AI for emails. They're using AI to have less meetings. That's not a differentiator. That's an efficiency gain that everybody is using. Think about how AI can innovate you and keep you in the market that you're currently in. How can it differentiate the next boot camp to make you top in the ed boot camp space? How can it differentiate you in healthcare and keep you in top? So think of AI as a differentiator for innovation, and how can you innovate on it?
Awesome. So start investing in AI and your AI skills. And because I know we are not done talking about it, I think we could have a whole another panel on AI in education. And so we do have one question from Ashley. So I guess in like one word or a couple, what is one thing you learned throughout your career that you wished you knew earlier, Jelly?
One thing that I wish I knew earlier. Ooh, that's a tough one, because I've learned a lot. I would say, for in the field that I am, it will be a lot of naysayers. I kind of knew, being a double minority, that people will say no, and that non-minorities will fall up the ladder, and that I would have to embrace people falling up the ladder no matter how hard I had to work to get up the ladder myself. And I knew there were going to be naysayers. Even now, I'm a content creator and have an LLC with Learning with Jelly, but I didn't know it was going to be as many. But on the flip side, I never thought it would be so many yes sayers too. Like, to have, when I looked at my first video and it had over 80,000 views, I was like, that is crazy, right? So I would say, you know, if I would have knew the yes sayers, because I was so focused on the naysayers early on, I would have probably started this independent journey that I'm doing now years ago.
Nice. I love that, Jelly. I would say the biggest piece of advice, or the thing that I learned, I will admit the hard way, is, and this is especially important for women in analytics, right? Women who are working in this field. Don't be afraid to challenge others, but also recognize that you being a woman may offend some people if you challenge them. I have unfortunately had some experiences early on in my career where I was simply asking a question: why are we going this route versus this one? And I learned I had to tailor my delivery because I was a woman, because if I said it the way a man says it, it's considered aggressive or too direct for a woman. And so just be cognizant of that, especially depending on who you're working with, especially if you have external clients, or if you're even working in education, with people in education. Having that sensitivity to push back in a way that is a little bit more traditional, but at the same time, do not be afraid to push back, because that's exactly why we're here as informed, decision makers.
Or
Amazing.
leave, to Jenna's point, leave that company. If they not embracing your feedback, that's direct, because I'm very direct, like you two. Leave. I actually have one of my previous engagements. They wanted a PhD male on the client, and the PhD male ran it in the ground. And I was so happy. Not happy for that client, but you purposely unstaffed me because you thought that they were more qualified to serve this client and that they could sit in the room with senior leaders, and I couldn't because I was the only Black female. And the company lost money, and I was happy that they saw that, right? Don't just have a DEI initiative to check a box. You really got to start thinking about these things. And if your company don't back them, leave them and start your own organization.
I love that. And the perspectives you bring are valuable, and people have to start realizing that if they overlook those perspectives, they're overlooking a lot of possibilities.
Yeah. No more plan B, plan me. I'm gonna tell you right now. Your plan B is your plan me. Go ahead, create that course. Chris is great here. He's not one that I'm talking about. Very open to feedback, direct and indirect, right? But create that course. If you're an educator, have a plan me, because the way that organization politics is, they might not ever get to a point where they 100% accepts everybody in their delivery, right? So your plan B is your plan me.
I love that. And I know we touched on it a little bit. Jelly, I know you're developing courses with them. As we wrap up, Chris, what's the best way for folks to get started with a platform like CourseStack?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren, and thanks, Jelly and Jenna. It's been a great session with you. The best way to get started is really just to jump in and try out the platform. We're free to sign up. I've heard a lot about individual learning styles, individual teaching styles, getting hands-on, and really a lot of those themes are what CourseStack is all about. We want to encourage individual course creators to go in, share your expertise, share what you know, give you the power of some of those other platforms you mentioned, like Analyst Builder, Data Camp. It's really easy to build super hands-on, impactful learning with CourseStack. So, we're not the experts in data science, especially, but I think more broadly, we really believe in the power of individual expertise and teaching styles. So jump in, check us out, take Jelly's course. Yeah, and I'm, like Jelly mentioned, open to feedback, always willing to hop on a call and chat, walk you through the platform personally, answer questions you have, advice about your course that we've seen other course creators succeed with. So yeah, thanks again, Lauren.
Awesome.
And Chris has a Discord, and he responds to you in a timely manner. And there's a Jupyter Notebook integration. I just gotta sell him too, look, because I told him, I said, Chris, I want
Appreciate it.
people to download their Jupyter Notebook. And Chris, I didn't even build no course yet. And Chris came back with the feature. That's how quick his team worked. So shout out to that.
Awesome.
Thanks.
We're so excited about CourseStack. This is amazing. I checked out the Jupyter Notebook integration right away when I saw that. Incredible.
I know, Lauren, wasn't it? Because when he
It's
told
so
me, I said,
nice.
this is what I need, Chris.
All right, awesome. Well, we are right at time. So I want to thank you both again, Jenna and Jelly, so much for your insights, for your expertise, for the tips and tricks that you are willing to share with others. And I think this was just such a wonderful conversation, and I'm so happy you both were able to join us. I hope everyone has a great week, and the recording will be up. We will try and capture all of the resources mentioned because there were so many wonderful resources mentioned. But thank you both so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Have a great day.